What's up, guys? Welcome back to Among the Fence, my YouTube channel where I do music reviews on albums and EPs and singles. If you have anything you want to review, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what it is, and it'll be featured on a Request Wednesday. I know I've been slacking on that lately, but I promise I will start it back up again probably sometime next week as soon as I stop being lazy about it. On my Instagram channel, I posted on my story asking if people wanted me to do a review on the 10-year anniversary for Leveler, the August Burns Red album, and kind of like a celebration of it, because I know this is a lot of people's favorite album. It doesn't really get a whole lot of attention, and I think like the voting was like 75 to like 25% or something like that. So here we are. Today we're going to be checking out the album Leveler by the band August Burns Red. For those of you who don't know who August Burns Red is, and I'd be kind of surprised if anybody doesn't, they are a 5-piece kind of like progressive metalcore band from Pennsylvania. They started around 2003. They currently have 9 studio albums out, and while I wouldn't consider them to be like the Godfather of metalcore or anything like that, I would probably put that title more on like Killswitch Engage or As They Lay Dying, maybe even Trivium. I will say that as far as like longevity goes, this is probably the most consistently good metalcore band that hasn't like just kind of like sold out in a way, or they haven't become too watered down in their sound. They continue to evolve in a very consistent way, just where they keep their core sound that they have. They just manage to keep growing on it and improving it freaking album after album. And also with that, it's really hard for people to pick a favorite album. I know it's so hard for me to pick a favorite album because they're all so good. If you go on Reddit or any type of forum and you look up August Burns Red albums ranked and you see what fans rank them as, you're going to see almost every type of variation for their order of albums to be put. I mean, any album could be at the top as far as it goes. However, when it comes to Leveler, which was their 4th album to be released in 2011, some people just kind of don't like this album for some reason, and I've never really understood why. I mean, it's not really one of my least favorites, and even if it is considered my least favorite, it doesn't mean I necessarily like it, because I love all of their stuff. But I would kind of probably place it on the fact that they decided to go with a different type of writing style. This is when they started introducing kind of weird interludes. The production was a little bit different, especially coming off of Constellations. The production and writing style for music was way different, a little bit tighter sounding, less thrashy. And speaking of thrashy, the first song on the album, the first single to be released off this album, and also the very first time I ever heard August Burns Red back in 2011. I think I saw the music video for Empire on like Much Music, or if anybody even remembers what Much Music is, I think it was Fuse TV or something like that by this time. And I'm almost certain that I saw the music video for Empire directly after seeing the music video for Coheed and Cambria's The Suffering. I mean, it was a pretty good night. And Empire is about finding the joy and using your God-given gift to kind of give back to the world or help people out without expecting anything in return. It's pretty heavy. It's a really big sounding song, and it is a little thrashy. The vocals are a lot tighter than what I've heard in like their past albums. I believe this is when the production just became a little bit tighter sounding. And the vocals do sit a little bit more behind the mix, which I'm also not really used to hearing that as well. The chorus is pretty open and, dare I say, catchy. The woes are pretty appropriate for 2011, even though they haven't aged all that well. At least to me, I'm not a big fan of woes, but they do a good job of making it big and epic. The lyrics have a lot of good metaphors, and there's a gnarly breakdown with echoey vocals at the end, which is pretty sick. The second song on the album, Internal Canons, I believe is about overcoming insecurities by having kind of like a support team of people kind of cheering you on and helping you out. Again, it's a little thrashy sounding. A lot of people didn't like the transition from Constellations to Leveler, and I believe it was because of the like lack of thrashiness, but at the same time I still kind of sense it here. And the music it's just balls to the walls on this song, especially melodically. And it does feature one of the kind of weird interludes. It's like a Midwestern gunslinger kind of sound, and I believe this is when they very first started to try this out, which after this album, they went to Rescue and Restore, which, I mean, it wasn't really in any of those songs, but then they went to Found in Faraway Places, which they kind of perfected this interlude thing, and I feel like that's why people don't really like Found in Faraway Places either, because this it just gives it a weird atmosphere, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't really fit in the song that well. The guitar solo that comes after it sounds really good. I really don't mind the interludes. In fact, Found in Faraway Places has some of my favorite songs from August Burns Red, and it features these interludes, but I do believe that this is where they lost a lot of people. I have 2 songs on this album that are tied for second favorite. The first one is Cutting the Ties, which I believe, meaning-wise, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's got a beautiful lead guitar that's really quick, but still carries a lot of feels to it. The lyrics are kind of personal, but the drums from Matt Greiner, I believe this is probably my favorite song, mainly like drum-wise. They're just absolutely phenomenal. The interlude, which again, kind of weird, but still has so much, it's just so impactful. It carries a lot of weight and a lot of emotion to it. The breakdown doesn't really hold anything back at all. My only issue with Cutting the Ties is the guitar tone. It's just so, it just sounds so compressed. Those EMG pickups that they're using in their guitars, they really, it's just such a compressed sound. There's no dynamics to that guitar tone at all. Even though it's the case on some of the songs on this album, I don't know, they do something different. Maybe they change the amp settings, maybe they use a different pedal, different kind of compression setting in the mix. I don't know, but it isn't in every single song. But this song, this is where I noticed it the most. And this one probably would have been closer to a favorite if it wasn't for that guitar tone. Second one is the song directly after it, which is Pangea. Very, very flashy metal guitar riff. The verse is more dynamic and has some kind of unique vocal choices that adds more layers to the song. The lyrics are also very personal, and it just has an overall feel of it just feels very inspiring. At least to me it does. All these songs are kind of uplifting in their way. The lead guitar it sounds like the lead guitar is playing a solo throughout most of the entire song, at least behind the rhythm guitar, and that just sounds absolutely sick too. And my favorite song on the album, Salt and Light, which I believe is also the first song that they started to write for this album. It's got tons of energy to it. It's a lot more fun. The riff is pretty experimental. The drums are all over the place. It just feels like the song that started it all. When you come up to a blank canvas and you want to paint something, you have a little bit more freedom, creativity, as opposed to coming up to a painting that's already halfway done. You can't do as much with it. And this feels like this is where it all started. The interlude is very pretty with spoken vocals, like spoken word vocals, and then there's tons of passion throughout this entire song. And there's clean vocals in the outro too, which isn't very common for this band whatsoever. The song directly after it is Poor Millionaire, which is about people who use religion for financial purposes. The music and vocals are all over the place, but one thing I really enjoyed about this song is just the sheer aggression and fierceness, and the lyrics don't really hold anything back whatsoever. It's just, it's all out. The breakdown doesn't hold anything back. It's just a gnarly song. And then you have songs that feel a little bit more random and more experimental, like they just wanted to have fun with something, like the song Divisions, which is about having empathy or just being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. There's a huge buildup in the intro going into the verse with a really sick, isolated riff. It's another thing that I enjoy about these guys. And honestly, just metalcore in general, a lot of times, there's a lot of times when like everything cuts out and you just hear this really sick, fast riff. It's just so juicy. And it also has a lot of dissonance too, which is something that you're not really used to hearing from these guys. The first breakdown it's pretty dope, with the melody kind of chilling in the background, just echoing its way through, which sounds really good. And the transitions are kind of weird starting out in the song, but once it all comes together, it sounds really good. Another song, Carpe Diem, which is a vocal split between the lead singer, Jake, and the bass player, Dustin. And it's kind of like a conversation that a kid is having with, I guess, like an adversary or someone like a bully in a sense, maybe his own negative mentality. And it's about this kid who has ambitions in life, and this other person is kind of putting him down and telling him he's worthless and he just can't ever do it, and like kind of like overcoming that in a sense. The lyrical idea is probably the best that August Burns Red has on this album. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's really fun, works out really well. It's just very well written. It's got big chords in it instead of really fast riffs, which makes the song sound huge, and it helps the vocals and lyrics really break through away from everything. The interlude has kind of like a suspenseful buildup into the victory of this narrative. It's perfectly executed without like any flashy riffs or anything too. And now this is the part where people will probably start disliking me, because one of the songs I had an issue with is the song 40 Nights. It's got a thrashy riff, and the first breakdown's fantastic. I really like the flow and the cadence of it. But honestly, for this song, I feel like the vocals are the real hero here. The vocals save it, because musically it just doesn't really do it. Like, there's flashy riffs going on, there's amazing breakdowns, but I feel like the parts that are supposed to hit musically and the parts that are supposed to grab you musically and really stand out, it just didn't really do it for me. Like, and that's really rare for this band. Usually when the vocals come out and you get to hear the music, those are my favorite parts. But on 40 Nights, I was actually waiting for the music to come back. And another song where I had a similar problem was Boys of Fall, which is followed by 1/16/2011, which is an absolutely tragic date. And on this album, it's just a little, maybe like 25-second, actually it might be a little bit longer, close to a minute long interlude. And it's about 4 boys who died in a car accident in the hometown where August Burns Red comes from, and it really just messed up the whole city. It was just really bad. They were high schoolers, you know, they had their whole life ahead of them kind of thing. Everybody's really sad, and it was very devastating. And that's why I kind of feel bad for saying that I didn't enjoy this song. But honestly, the vocals and the lyrics are the strongest point in this song. The music is where I kind of lost it. It's great, but it's just very typical August Burns Red metalcore sound. And also it's the guitar tone. It's just so rough and compressed sounding. It's so hard for me to get over that in this song. And for the closing song on this album, we have the title track song Leveler, which is about forgiving someone who betrayed you or hurt you, did you wrong. And after listening to like the first 75% of the song, you wouldn't know that lyrically. I mean, it's just so vicious. This person is calling them out, telling them everything they did wrong. Not a whole lot of forgiveness there, but then towards the end, the last 25%, they express the forgiveness and how they're letting all these things go. It has a very climactic feel to it, musically very soaring and inspiring. Probably the heaviest moments on this album are in this song, and it's a really solid closer. So after listening to Leveler in its entirety, I understand why it would be a favorite for some people, but I also understand why some people wouldn't really care for it that much and might rank it last out of their entire discography. For me, someone who's addicted to riffs and fast, juicy guitar work, this album just didn't do it for me. It wasn't really there. I felt like they put more of a focus on the lyrics and the vocals and the storytelling and just the songwriting, which I believe is where they started to transition all that stuff and they started to get better at it. I also didn't really enjoy the mix on it. The guitar tones were just so compressed. Those active pickups that they use in their guitars. Normally, I don't have any problem with active pickups. Normally, it's just the typical sound that you hear. But in this album, oh my god, it was rough on my ears after a while. This album does have some gold on it, some very winning properties to it. Like Empire is absolutely amazing, Carpe Diem, Salt and Light, even 40 Nights, even though I didn't really like it that much, it isn't a bad song. Same with Boys of Fall. There's a lot of really cool concepts and songwriting ideas that they executed flawlessly. Internal canon, and there's just almost every song on here could be a favorite from someone. So with all that said, I got to give Leveler by August Burns Red a 8.6 out of 10. And this album's been around for 10 years now, so I'm sure a lot of people have listened to it. So I want to know what you guys think. If you're a fan, what makes this album stand out to you more than some of their other albums? If you don't like it, is it because of the interludes? I mean, what is it that you don't really like about it? Maybe it's the riffs, maybe, I don't know, maybe some songs just don't stand out to you all that much. Leave a comment below letting me know what you think of it and what you would rate it. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a like. Please subscribe and ring the bell icon, that way you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. Leave a comment below letting me know what I should review next. And I hope you guys all have a good rest of your night or day whenever you happen to be watching this. And I will talk to you guys next time. I was